We are living in a time when events no longer unfold at a steady pace. They are accelerating. Prophecy speaks of a divine acceleration of judgment upon the earth. And now we see major catalysts triggering all around us. The shocking assassination of Charlie Kirk has sent ripples through a divided world. At the same time, Russian aggression in Europe is intensifying, with waves of drone attacks shaking nations already on edge. It feels as though the world is reaching a boiling point, one push away from chaos spilling over. Faithful Catholics across the globe are sensing it deep within their souls, a sixth sense warning them of something catastrophic, something devastating, just around the corner. Is this the beginning of the great shaking foretold in scripture and prophecy? The great tribulation? Are we witnessing the birth pangs that herald the unveiling of judgment and purification? Judgment has already begun in the church and throughout the world. But now divine judgment is accelerating at a pace like never before. Today we dive into the signs, the warnings, and the unfolding drama of divine acceleration in our times.
Many are still waiting for the punishment as if it were something that is going to fall from the sky, from one moment to another. The warning, the 3 days of darkness, the fireballs, earthquakes, tsunamis. They are convinced that when that moment comes, everything will change. But what they do not realize is that we are already in purification. Purification is not something that is going to start. It is something that is already started, and we have it in front of our eyes. Purification begins with the collapse of the old, and if one looks closely, the collapse is everywhere. There is moral confusion, broken families, children who are not allowed to be born, rejection of the body with which they were born, governments in crisis, new wars every month, churches that are attacked, churches that are emptied, and a violence that no longer surprises anyone. And yet we continue to hear superficial explanations. What is the economy? What is politics? What is cultural change? Very few dare to say that this is really the judgment, the purification, the beginning of a punishment. God is allowing the system that rejected him to begin to fall by its own weight. A system that has been raised against God for centuries is being judged. The center of Western civilization was God, truth, moral law, family, community. But that began to change in an organized way. First came the heresies, which broke the unity of faith. Then came the political revolutions, which presented freedom as a rupture against all authority. Then came the Enlightenment, which promoted a self-sufficient reason without the need for faith. And with liberalism, the idea was implanted that everyone is the absolute owner of their life, of their body, and of their truth. Instead of accepting that there is an order given by God, modern man decided that he could be his own God. The good no longer mattered, but the desire, and all that process was disguised as progress. Behind all this revolution in Christianity, there is a spiritual intelligence. It is the same as always, the adversary of God and of humanity. But his war is not fought only in the interior of the souls. He has used powerful instruments such as the Freemasonry, infiltrating governments, institutions, and even sectors within the same church. The globalist elites have financed movements that destroy faith, morality, and family. International organizations dictate laws contrary to the natural law, imposing their agendas on the world. The big media mold public opinion, changing the meaning of events. And social networks create addiction and deepen the story. When the enemy has taken positions on all fronts and the peoples have voluntarily surrendered to that anti-Christian logic, what remains is the collapse. And what we are seeing now is nothing more than the progressive collapse of a world that no longer loves God. One of the weapons of the enemy was radical liberalism, which, with the excuse of defending freedom, instilled the idea that each one is the absolute owner of his life. As if there was no objective truth, as if there was no natural order. This is how everything that came from God or the church began to be seen as oppressive. The commandments, the moral law, the difference between good and evil. All this was presented as a religious imposition, as something that had to be overcome. Another was the cultural war, which consisted of emptying the sense of education, of forming art, filling the media with entertainment disguised as propaganda, and turning politics into a theater without truth. Everything was fragmented into opposing groups, each one with his flag, his cause, and his victimhood. But true freedom needs a firm foundation, knowing that each person has an inviolable dignity, that the common good is above the individual whim, that not everything can be imposed from above, that we must respect the natural order of things from the family to the community. And once the enemy installed his system of ideas, what he did was reinforce it with an economic system that is not based on producing goods, but on producing desires. They taught us that happiness is in enjoying, in having, in possessing. At the same time, we were pushed to a life of constant dependence on credit, cell phone, networks, likes, permanent noise. What used to be leisure is now compulsion. This is how millions of souls were formed, addicted to the things that destroy them. People who can no longer be in silence, nor think clearly, nor wait, nor resist. This purification also has to do with that. God, in his justice and in his love, is allowing that structure to fall, so that at least some wake up before it is too late. The system is coming down. Governments that can no longer govern, economies that cannot be sustained, coins that lose their value, institutions that no longer inspire respect, schools that do not educate, churches that do not preach the truth. Everything is shaking. There are new permanent wars, nuclear threats, pandemics that leave more questions than answers, uncontrolled migrations, growing insecurity, attacks on religious freedom, no way out political tensions. We are living God's judgment on a system that made fun of him for too long. And it is not that God has sent lightning from heaven. What he did was something much more serious. He withdrew a part of his protection. It is as if God said, "Do you want a world without me? Well, let's see what you are able to sustain for yourselves." And many Catholics think of prophecies as if purification were something sudden, spectacular, with angels and fire and visible miracles. But when you calmly review what the Marian apparitions really said, you find something more similar to what we are experiencing now. For example, Fatima was clear from the beginning. If the world did not become, there would be more wars, persecutions, ideological errors that would spread everywhere, and even the Vatican itself would be hit. Akita in Japan warned of a punishment worse than the flood. Yes, but before that, the Virgin said that we would see cardinals against cardinals, bishops against bishops, and the church full of those who accept commitments. We are not yet seeing the final phase, but the cleansing has already begun. And it is so subtle, so constant, so integrated into daily life that many do not realize that the prophecies are being fulfilled in a silent way. This purification that we are experiencing is a great test because it will show who is awake and who is asleep. So the first thing we have to recover is the ability to discern what is really happening, to see the signs of the times, not as the television or the networks present them. That is why the first thing is to stop swallowing the story that they impose on us. We have to discern reality with Christian categories of analysis, considering what is the central battle that is described in the Bible in the Apocalypse. Then we have to clean our hearts. This purification cannot be faced from confusion or stubbornness. Those who do not pray today, who do not live in grace, will not endure what is going to accelerate, and no one can resist alone. It is essential to seek community. When you find others who seek the same, faith is strengthened. And there is something else. Do not expect a magical solution. This purification must be overcome because God is not absent. He is cleaning even us, and those who endure infidelity will be the foundation of the new. So far, what we wanted to talk about is that purification has already begun, which indicates that the constant exercises of terror that some witnesses submit to us, announcing tragedies daily, is a fun that prevents us from seeing that we are in the middle of judgment and purification. May God bless you and allow you to understand the signs of time.